You're a PhD student or academic who is staring at a messy first draft of an article or chapter. I can guess how you're feeling. You feel like you've got 100,000 things to do, but they're all equally important and you don't know where to start. You're beating yourself up for it not being better in the first place, terrified that you're not good enough to actually make it better, and feeling like you don't actually have time to do this anyway. If that's you, you are in totally the right place. I'm going to help you get from first draft to final draft. By the end of this video, you are going to have a list of straightforward steps to work through, and you are going to believe that you are capable and motivated to do it. How do I know? I'm Dr. Vicky Wright, the PhD life coach. I was an academic for 20 something years, and I help PhD students and academics like you achieve their goals whilst also living the lives they want to live. I understand the pain of trying to get a chaotic first draft into something that's good enough to send a supervisor, a collaborator, or an editor, or even just good enough so that you don't feel like a complete idiot anymore. Even academics like me would take many, many iterations to get something finished. Editing is completely normal. Multiple iterations, going back to the beginning and completely changing the order, chopping huge chunks out of things you've written, all these things are absolutely completely normal. The fact that you write a crap first draft is not a sign that you don't belong in academia. The fact it's taking you 10 different versions and you still don't feel like it's finished isn't a sign that you're not good enough at this or you shouldn't try anymore. The big difference, though, is that experienced academics like me have some sort of system, either explicit, like I'm going to teach you, or more implicit that you kind of built up over time. Whereas people who are more towards the beginnings of their academic process are usually just kind of trying to correct everything and hope that it's good enough. If you want more behind the curtain looks at how to succeed in academia and build a life you love, do make sure that you subscribe to my channel by pressing whichever of the buttons you can see down there that say subscribe. I talk about this stuff all the time. The second thing is that we have to separate drafting from editing. For me, editing while you're drafting is like ironing clothes when you're shopping. Okay, picture the scene. You've gone to choose some new clothes for your wardrobe. Your job is to try stuff out and decide what you want to keep. Except you've taken your iron and your ironing board with you, and every little thing that you try on, you iron and make sure it's perfect and make sure it's hung up and it's ready to go before you've even decided whether it fits in your wardrobe, whether it fits you, whether you need it or like it or not. It's a total waste of time. Most of this stuff you're never going to buy. Most of it's going to go back onto the shelves. And then even the stuff you decide to keep is going to get scrumpled in a bag while you take it home, however carefully you fold it, and will only need ironing again once you get home. We don't polish things or iron things there in the shop. We choose what we want first and worry about that stuff later. It is exactly like that with drafting and editing. When we draft, our job is to generate new text. It is not to make it beautiful. It is not to make it in the right order yet. It is not to make it compelling and concise and all the things we aim for. Our job is to create it so that we've got something to edit. Editing old text distracts you from the task you're actually meant to be doing and is usually a massive waste of time because you're going to delete it later, you're going to change it later, you're going to mess it up when you try and clarify your argument. Don't iron clothes in the clothes shop. Now we've got it clear that everyone has to do several rounds of edits and we're not going to do it at the same time as drafting, we're ready to move on. I'm going to make an assumption if you're watching this video that you have something approximating a first draft. If you don't, really make sure you're subscribing because I have another video coming on how to get to a first draft soon. You don't need to have a whole chapter, but maybe a completed section that you want to edit. Our first job is to just celebrate. Completing a section, completing an article is a huge thing. Even if you think it looks like a whole jumbled mess at the moment, it is massive to have generated that much text. So massive pat on the back for you. Now what we need to do is map out what we actually have here. Because one of the biggest problems with editing, especially when you get to the stage of editing articles or theses even, is that it's just all too overwhelming to look at all at once. You can see it's a mess, but how to even start making sense of that feels absolutely impossible. So the first thing is creating a reverse plan. A reverse plan reduces a complex draft down to a series of sentences where each sentence represents one of your paragraphs. So what we're going to do, we're going to read a paragraph, summarize what it says in one sentence. Don't just write introduction, say physical activity is associated with reduced risk of cardiovascular disease, if that's the take home of your first paragraph. We're going to go through paragraph by paragraph, summarizing as a single sentence. Now, if you find this difficult, you probably will, don't freak out. Even the process of doing this is telling us something. If it's hard to summarize a paragraph because it feels like there's two different points in there, great. Write two different sentences and make a note that they came from the same paragraph. If you read it and go, I don't actually think this paragraph says anything, that's fine. Make a note of that too. No sentence needed. Paragraph can be combined or removed. We then get to a place where this huge long document has been reduced to a series of bullet points that should encapsulate your whole story. It won't. Don't worry, it never does first time, but that's the bit we're going to fix. From here, we're going to do a series of edits based on this plan, and then later we're going to do a series of more edits on the full text. I'm also going to give you an incredibly useful tip for any of you who have those annoying supervisors who insist on only giving feedback on polished drafts. Now, if you're thinking, this sounds super useful, but I need to write this all down, there's too many things, don't worry, there's a link in the description. You can sign up there, send me your email address, and I will send you a summarized version of everything I say in this video. Make sure you keep watching though, because I'm going to add extra explanation as we go through so that it all absolutely makes sense to you. So in this first section of edits, we're going to only look at the reverse plan summary. Leave your text to one side. And I want you to ask yourself the following questions. Is the point made clear from the summary? It needs to be by the end. Can you see the argument that you're making? What evidence is there? Why is it important? Why should people listen? Are all the paragraphs doing a useful job? Often you can think about that in terms of, are each of the paragraphs answering a mini question that builds towards the bigger question? Are any of the paragraphs redundant because they're repetitive? Are there any paragraphs missing when you were trying to summarize them? Were there any that you found hard to summarize because they didn't really say anything? In which case, do they need to be removed or expanded? Did some paragraphs make 2 points? In which case, they need to be separated out? Are they in a useful order that builds a compelling argument and makes sense? Is there a different way it could be ordered? What would be the implications of doing that? Do you start and finish in the most sensible places for your audience? So as an example, do you give too much background for an already specialist audience or insufficient background for the audience that you're talking to? Does your conclusion actually add value rather than just kind of tail off? So as I say, if you want a handout with a list of all these, there's a link in the description. I'll send it to you. Fix any of those issues right here in the reverse plan by changing, adding, and or removing sentences. Don't add more detail by turning them into paragraphs. We're not trying to recreate the article yet. We want to clarify them here in the summary. And by the end of this bit, the reverse plan should read as a polished summary of your argument. If your supervisor insists they can only give feedback on polished drafts, my unprofessional answer is that they're wrong and stupid and you should send them to me so that I can tell them why. I wouldn't suggest you say that though. My more professional answer is ask them if they would be willing to read and give feedback on a polished summary, because we're just creating that using the reverse plan. And this won't have all the evidence and all the nuance in it, but I think it gives them sufficient information to see, are you writing in a way that's broadly academic and at the right depth? And does your argument broadly make sense? Are you saying something that's meaningful and useful and justified in your data? And that's the stuff we want early feedback on, right? If they wait for polished drafts, we could be spending ages and ages polishing something that we end up not using. Whereas this allows them to see the kind of bones of the argument and check that you're headed in the right direction before you then do the rest of the polishing. The next step, now we've got this polished summary, you get your feedback if you can, happy days. The next step is to go back to the original text, that longer text, and start plopping chunks of it into this new and improved structure. This is like moving house and starting to, those things broadly go in that living room, they were broadly in my bedroom, they'll broadly go there. We don't have to make it beautiful at this stage, we don't need to import, we don't need to improve it, just pop them roughly where they go and make some notes of where you're missing some text. Once that's done, we go back into drafter mode and actually fill those sections where we need new bits, fill those sections with new first drafts. At this stage, we've got it all back into this nice new improved structure. And you're probably going to hear yourself going, yeah, but it's still so rough. I don't sound academic enough. There's typos. And all I want you to say is, yeah, of course there is. This is a draft. It's not meant to be polished at this stage. We're still building. It's meant to look like a building site. I'm going to fix that stuff later. If you hear in your head your brain going, oh, but I couldn't see a spelling error. I couldn't see a spelling error and not correct it. Yeah, you could. You totally could. You have just spent too long in a society that has rewarded you from being neat and tidy and correct and giving you gold stars for it. And that's just not the game anymore. That's just not what we're doing. Polishing at every single stage is a waste of your time. Your job is to get your important work written to a stage where other people can see your important work. We're going to put the right bits in the right places, put up with the roughness for a while, and then we will polish the final thing. It'll look gorgeous before anybody else sees it, don't worry. So now we have a better full draft. It's not first draft anymore. We're on like second, third version. Still ugly in places. There's still language we don't like. There's errors perhaps. There's maybe even things we still want to change structurally. But we're starting to believe we can move this forward because we're following a process. And the rest of the process you're going to think is extremely inefficient. And once again, I'm going to tell you why you're wrong. With love, obviously. I want you to imagine I ask you to go for a walk. And on your walk, I want you to take photos of anything red you see. It's actually a really relaxing, meditative thing to do. Highly recommend. You'll have a lovely walk and you'll be spotting all sorts of things that you don't usually notice. Now imagine I asked you to leave your house and go for a walk and take photos of anything that's red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, black or white. It'd be chaos. You wouldn't get further than the end of your street and your phone would be full of like 100,000 photos and you'd feel like you'd achieved nothing at all. That's what happens when we try and edit all the things at once, where we try and correct the typos and improve the academicness and shorten it and make it deeper and make it more critical. We don't want to do all those things at once. We pick one thing and look for those and do those, then we systematically move towards something that has improved. It will be easier. It will ultimately be faster, I promise, and it will be more effective. I'm going to share my list, but you can also add things that you always want to check in a draft too. The first is we get to go back to all those questions we asked of the reverse plan, our polished summary, and double check that those things are still true now that we've got the longer paragraphs. Don't forget, you can get a list of those from the link in the description. After that, here's a series that we're going to look at. The important thing is we start with the big overarching kind of more structural stuff and we get more and more detailed as we go down. So I start with transitions. Does one paragraph flow neatly into the next? Look at the last sentence of one paragraph, first sentence of the next. Do they flow together well? Precision and clarity. Does each paragraph precisely state the point you're trying to make? Sometimes we know what we're trying to say, but other people who don't have the background, it doesn't make quite as much sense. Check that it will make sense to someone who isn't already clear. Do you give enough evidence or go kind of deep enough? By the way, if you often get that as a criticism from your supervisor, I highly recommend you and your supervisor selecting an article that you both think does this really well and actually analyze it. What do they do in the bits where they've gone deep enough? Because that can mean different things for different people, and it's the best way to learn how to do it is to see it in action. Are you using your terms or arguments consistently? Are there places where you argue against yourself? Or did you change the technical word you were using partway through and forget to go back and change it earlier? Make sure everything is consistently used. Are your quotes and data accurate? I'm assuming that you've gone through your results process already and you've checked it all to some extent, but when it's come through into the write-up, has it all been represented accurately? Are your graphs accurate if you have them? Are your references accurate? Only now do we start thinking about the more glamorous stuff. Is it eloquent, concise, academic? We only polish once we know we're going to keep all the bits. And then finally, we're going through checking all the little bitty stuff. Is it formatted in line with whatever guidelines your particular discipline says you have to follow? Are there things that you routinely get wrong in spelling, punctuation and grammar that you want to double check are correct? I always used to comment on run-on sentences and fragment sentences. If you don't know what those are, go Google it. But make a list of the things that you know you always get wrong or need to check, and the things that your supervisor gets a bit pedantic about. So we are going to work our way through this list. Instead of sitting in front of it going, oh no, it's just not good enough and now I've got to make it good enough, I don't know what to do. We're going to go, the next on my list is checking this. Off we go. We spend an hour on that. Right, what's next on the list? We're going to check that. It is not inefficient to do it one bit at a time. It is so much more effective. What's inefficient is to stare at it for half an hour, beating yourself up about the fact you're not doing anything and then go and scroll Instagram instead. Being efficient is having a process that you can work your way through. do accurately and see where you're at in all of the steps. It even helps feeding back to your supervisor. So if your supervisor says, is that draft nearly ready for me? You can say, I've checked this, and this. I've still got these things to check. Much more systematic, much more in control of the process. So that is how you go from first draft to final draft. It's not a quick fix. PhD and academia doesn't thrive on quick fixes. It's not what we're here for. But it's a process that you are capable of moving through. You'll be able to see exactly where you're up to, what needs to be done next, and then you will know when you're done. And you will have a final draft that's ready to submit wherever you need it. I hope you found that useful. If you haven't already checked out the PhD Life Coach podcast, it's available on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, all the places that you get your podcasts. And I will link to some of the episodes that you might find particularly useful.